What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Junk Synchrons. That's right, so this build is without the adventure build. It is all about the Junk Synchron, the rest of the Synchron gang, and just being able to synchro climb as fast and as high as you possibly can to give you some very devastating end boards. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. In my opinion, this is the defensive equivalent to the Red Dragon Archfiend deck. Unfortunately, this doesn't have like a structured deck that gives you everything in a recent kind of build, so it is a little bit more costly. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile. So you're going to start off with triple Junk Synchron. This is your ideal normal summon, but what you really need with this deck is you need to be able to have that additional monster in the graveyard. You need to be able to kind of get that card to the graveyard to then be able to revive it with the Junk Synchron. But then of course you can also special summon Junk Synchron because obviously it is listed on the monster from the extra deck, which allows you to reveal it off of Junk Warrior and Synchron Overtake. For the rest of the Synchrons, we are going with 2 Assault, 2 Revolution, 2 Stardust, 1 Wheeled Synchron, and 1 Jet Synchron. Now, I actually really like Wheeled Synchron in this build. Obviously, it sucks if you open it, but when you special summon this, the one thing you do get when you do go through your speeder play is making sure you've got non-tuners on the board. And as you make that play, you only really have 1 non-tuner on the board in the form of the speeder itself. So when you have the ability of being able to summon a level 5 Will Synchron that can be treated as a non-tuner, it can be invaluable. It also gives you the ability that during the main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, you get to normal summon a level 4 or lower monster, and you cannot special monster from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except Synchron monsters. You can banish this card from the graveyard to target a Synchron monster you control and reduce its level by up to 4. So it gives you level manipulation, it gives you an additional normal summon, and on top of that, it gives you the ability to use it as a non-tuner. So I think it is absolutely near invaluable in this particular build. I'm not too sure about its applications in the adventure build for the pure fact that when you summon it off of the back of your adventure core or do what you need to, you don't really have enough space to get the core card you need, which is ideally something like your Stardust Synchron, your Revolution Synchron, your Assault Synchron, or your Jet Synchron. So you already pretty much fill up your spaces. Whereas in this build, what you're trying to do is you're trying to chain block your speeder where at all possible. But if you're not able to do that, what you're honestly doing is you're pretty much filling your board with different level tuners, and having a card that could be a non-tuner as well is invaluable. Giving you that additional normal to give you that ability to have another non-tuner on the board is absolutely insane for the deck. Then for the penultimate tuner of the deck, I am playing the 1 Hop Ear Squadron. You don't have to play this, but I am obviously playing Cupid Pitch in the extra deck. So when you play something like Cupid Pitch, you can very easily search out your Hop Ear Squadron. And what I quite like the idea behind that Hop Ear Squadron is that ability to be able to search it, and then during your opponent's turn, synchro into something like a Satellite Warrior, and in doing so, that Satellite Warrior will then give you basically a quick effect pop because you summon it and then you get to destroy their board. It also gives you an option to try and play around stuff like darkworld and no more, and some other interesting interactions on yourself, but just keep that in mind. So it's a really kind of cool option. I think it works out really nicely, and it is entirely up to you, personal preference. The other option that you could play in the extra deck instead of instead of Cupid Pitch for Hop Ear is of course your Crimson Dragon. I'm personally not playing it in this particular build just because we're going for a more direct we will synchro summon into those monsters, but the thing with the extra deck for synchro monsters is it's so tight. Like, you really do have to kind of adapt it to your playstyle and what you want. Then for the non-tuners and technical tuner is I am playing the Acasta engine. I just still quite like this. I like the idea that technically this plus Foolish Burial or with a discard is going to be able to give me my Stardust play as well, which can give me an unaffected Baron, which at the base minimum is still very powerful. Now, if you're not a fan of this, you can cut it completely, but the reason that this is better than the Supai version in this particular deck is for the pure fact that your level 8s are a little bit more powerful because you want to get to that Stardust, whereas your level 6s is only really going to be Charge Warrior, or you've got the option to go into your Coral Dragon, and both of those don't really let you go much further. Whereas with a caster at the right time, you can go that little bit further, especially if the discard is a level 2, or heck, even a level 1, you can still make your plays. Then carrying on for the non-tuners, of course, you've got your searcher in the form of the junk converter. Now, the big issue with this particular deck is that it does put less on the board and run quicker into a draw and lock bird in comparison to a adventure engine version. So you do need to be a little bit careful. If your local environment has droll running around everywhere, then you might want to look at something like the adventure engine as well. The adventure engine is actually really, really cheap, so it's definitely not a huge upgrade on what you have here. And heck, to be completely honest, when you're cutting stuff like your junk converters, your doppel warriors, your junk synchrons, you're pretty much bringing the cost down anyway. So by cutting those cards or not going to buy those cards, you then have the ability to fit in an adventure engine as well. Speaking of which, of course, Doppel Warrior. Now, obviously, the idea is between Junk Converter and Doppel Warrior, these are the two you want to be using to make your speeder, because then they will both give you the ability to chain block them, which is really, really important. Now, obviously, Converter is a little bit better because it doesn't fill up 2 zones on the board, but it gives you a tuner back rather than non-tuners. And that is, of course, where we bring ourselves back to the wheel Synchron, is because even if you bring back the tuner off of your junk converter, keeping in mind the speeder makes you special summon as many as possible. So when you're going chain link 1 speeder, chain link 2 doppel or junk, it then reduces the amount you can actually summon, because you will have to resolve doppel first or junk first, meaning that you're going to be able to summon 4 from the deck from junk, or you're going to be able to summon 3 from the deck with doppel, as long as you've put speeder in the extra monster zone. In doing so, the 4 you'd bring off your junk converter, 9 times out of 10, considering it's junk synchron that you've used, you're probably going to bring out your Stardust, your Will, your Jet, and then either your Assault, or you're going to be bringing out your Rev. Now, obviously, the reason for the Rev is to come back from the grave to sync up a little bit higher. The reason for the Assault is that if you're going through your Stardust play, you will trigger its effect by tributing one of your cards, meaning that you can loop back the Dispatter. The best thing about this batter as well is, of course, you can Omega hand rip your opponent for 2, which does mean it's even harder for them to try and break your end board on this, because your end board is pretty much going to be, ideally, draw a crud ton of cards through your TG Librarian and then back it up with a Baron, possibly an option to go into a Satellite Warrior during your opponent's turn, not to mention a Bestial Dispatter as well. Then for the other non-tuners, of course, Stardust Trail comes off the back of your Stardust play, 1 Synchron Carrier, 1 Cali Crow Claw, or Cali Claw Crow. I am playing just literally 2 Bestials in here, so the way I see these is these are technically a hand trap, so I'm not going to call this build Synchron Bestial when I'm only playing 2 Bestials, because then that's like saying, oh, I'm playing a Synchron Ash Blossom deck when I'm playing 3 Ashes. This can be anything you want. These can be more board breakers, it can be droplets, it can be imperms. I don't particularly see the point with a deck like this where you want to be so heavy on your combo pieces, opening up multiple hand traps. Like, the only benefit that opening up a hand trap will give you is the fact that they're a tuner. But other than that, you're better off opening up something like a Bestial that can help you extend to the board, especially when you've already resolved your speeder, giving you multiple tuners to help you synchro climb higher. Then we've got the 1 Magician's Souls and the 1 Illusion of Chaos. Now, the reason we've got these is because you do play a heavy stack of spells. So sometimes if you've got multiple spells and you've already got everything you need, you can Magician's Souls, send them to give you draws, which might help you unclog your hand a little bit, get you to the extenders that you might need, get you to the starters that you might need. Mainly off the back of stuff like On Your Mark, Set, Duel is the ideal one that you can send off with your Magician's Souls, for the pure fact that once you've activated it and done its effect, it's rare the game's going to go long enough for you to get the draw effect of the set, so you just get rid of it and get a free draw. Speaking of which, we've got your triple tuning. If anyone knows of a third ulti, let me know. I don't really mind about the language. I'm just a little bit sad that I'm missing one. And then, of course, you've got your Synchron Overtake. Pretty standard on this one. The way this works is just a special summon from the deck. That's what you really want to be going for. So very easy to get used to your junk. If you wanted to, you could play Jet Synchron or summon out the Jet Synchron, but I don't think that it's worth it in this particular version. On Your Mark, obviously great if you open it, crap if you don't. It's also pretty bad if you do run into Droll. The deck can play through Droll okay, because the idea would be that you can go on your mark, search what you need to, and then you do need to follow up with a way of getting a card to the graveyard. The card you want to be activating first, before anything else, if you have access to it, is your Junk Converter, because then this will give you your card in the graveyard for your Junk Synchron, and it will give you the search. So if they draw you after that, you're still able to play. Whereas if they draw you after On Your Marks, the only cards that can help you extend will be an Acaster to give you that discard, or a Foolish Barrel to get you to the monster to graveyard. From that point on, you're still in an okay position, because you can still resolve your Junk Speeder, you summon from the deck, You will lose your Stardust plate unless you already open up Illumination, but even doing so, that still gives you the ability of an unaffected Baron. It gives you the ability of something like a Crystal Wing, and give you a Bestial Dispatter, so it can still allow you to build your board under draw. But that is the one like issue, is what you need to do is you need to activate this while you control no other cards. So you would need to activate your Junk Warrior first, and then they go, okay, cool, yeah, I've got nothing. And then you go, all right, cool, now I'm going to activate in order to kind of send it and go. So you do need to be a little bit careful with how you're playing and resolving this card, which is why it's one of the ones that you could arguably take out completely. Like, it's not set in stone. It really does come down to your, play style, if you've got access to them. I mean, they're a super, so they're relatively cheap, but it really is up to you on how you want to play that. Other cards as well, you've got Triple Tactic Talons, you've got Triple Tactics Frost if you have access to those. You've got Fenris that you could very easily put in if you wanted to as well, just to give you a nice go second aggressive option. So it all works out quite nicely. Then for the one-offs, of course, you've got the one Illumination, you've got your one Reinforcement of the Army to give you your Doppel Warrior or your Junk Warrior, and then you've got the one Foolish Burial and the one Call by the Grave. Now, obviously, it is over a 40 card deck, so if you wanted to, you could cut the Call by the Grave, because you're like, what are the chances of me opening up this one-off at the exact time my opponent has a hand trap that I really want to interact with? If you were to do that, then I'd probably arguably put up Eclipse to 3. Now, Eclipse can be droplet if you want to, just give you a better, more non-responsive go second option. But I quite like the idea of Book of Eclipse being able to flip everything face down. Yes, it can be affected. The other downside of Book of Eclipse is if you set this, it will actually affect your board as well. So it gives you it's probably something where droplet might be a little bit better for the deck, but I'm just showing you a cheaper option. If you're like, I don't have droplets yet, I'm waiting for the rarity collection or anything like that, then you do have that to keep in mind. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. Of course, we do play the Celestial Double Star Shaman, followed by Herald of the Arc Light, Cupid Pitch, and then your Axel Synchron, Junk Warrior, Speeder, Librarian. So that's all your 5s. The only 6 you play is Charge Warrior. And then for your 8s, you've got your Stardust, which is going to come off the back of your Axel Synchro. Omega, because obviously you can hand rip your opponent for 2, and the way you do that is you make Bestial Dispatter, you make Omega, you use Omega's effect, rip one from your opponent's hand, use Dispatter to bring Omega back to the board, and then use Omega again to rip a second one. Keep in mind the first one will be banished forever, they won't be able to get that back. Crystal Wing to come off the back of your Rev, but can also be summoned using your Speeder plus your level 3 Junk Warrior, and then Dispatter, Satellite Warrior, and Baron. Now obviously you got your Defender, technical defender, but it can also be your popper as well. And then of course you've got your Satellite Warrior, which is just an out and out boom daddy kind of thing. So the idea is, the strategy I play with this one is I want to summon this with Hop here. And it, again, like I said, it allows my opponent to commit stuff to the board. They can go Dark Ruler. Yes, they'll know I have a Hop here, but then they probably like either think that I forget, or they're like not that worried about it, don't know what it does. And then the idea will be that once you get to a point, you go, okay, cool. You've committed monsters to the board. You've already Dark Rulered me, so my monsters on my board aren't doing anything for me. Activate Hop here before you get to a negate. Go into Satellite Warrior. The chances are by the time I make this, I've already got all of my lower level Synchrons in the deck, or Synchros in the graveyard. So he can just go, cool, gain a fat stack, pop, 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 clear the board off, and then they're like, ah, crap, I can't do anything now. Pass back to you, and then Satellite Warriors should be enough on his own to kill the game. Not to mention any of the other monsters you've left on the board as well. So that is it. Obviously, you do need to be a little bit careful, so I would honestly summon this in defense, and the reason I summon this in defense is if you haven't activated any other monster effects, and this is the first one you do, if they do have a Triple Tactics, Frost or Talents, if they steal it, they can't shift the position, so you're still going to clear their board off, and then they can't just swing in for your OTK. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyway, that is it for the profile. I hope it's given you a couple of ideas on your own build. I do really enjoy like all of the protagonist kind of decks. Like, I love Heroes, Synchrons, Dark Magician. They're all really, really fun to play around with. I do feel that the Adventure version of this deck is better. And the reason I say that is just because it gives it more gas, it gives it more protection, it gives it more aggression. It does mean that it relies less on its normal summon as well, which does mean there's less of an Achilles heel for your opponent to target once they know what the deck does and how to interact with it. But for now, if you don't have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.